Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video, we are looking at Tempus AI. It is time for another update, and on this chart, we've had quite some developments since the previous video. We have broken the levels of resistance, we have extended to lower prices. Today, we will of course cover all of that and focus on what we should expect next. But before we get into those smaller time frame details, I would like to go quickly through the larger time frame. And here, we have been tracking a couple of interpretations. Now, I consider them both inconsequential to what we should expect to form in this movement within this area. Yeah. And here we have the white scenario that could consider a 1-2 setup, and now we would be looking for a third wave to the upside. In this scenario, we would be tracking a leading diagonal, as within the wave 1, we only have an A, B, C pattern that has completed within this area. This would assume that we would have here an A wave up, a B wave down, and we would be looking for a wave C to complete a larger wave 3 to the upside. I personally probably prefer slightly the yellow interpretation, but it's not very different. In fact, it is also tracking a leading diagonal, but in the case of the yellow interpretation, this would have been a wave A up, a wave B down, and a wave C to the upside. In the end, we would still have an A, B, C pattern within a wave 1, we would have instead here a wave 2 correction, and we would be looking for a third wave to unfold to the upside. This is seemingly more simple because within this pattern we can track an A, B, C movement to complete the entire move, whereas within the white interpretation we would have needed to unfold an A, B, C pattern, where in this wave C we would have expected a 5-wave move to the upside, which I honestly find not to fit too well. Now, regardless of that, within our first move within this area, we unfortunately only have a 3-wave pattern we can clearly define. So we are looking for a low probability area of support for continuation to higher prices. I personally wouldn't find this interesting for a trade setup. I wouldn't be looking for a position directly into such an area, not after an initial 3-wave move to the upside, and I would rather be looking for the internal structure to provide us with more clarity that a higher probability area of support is going to be available and that we are going to be provided a more reliable pattern in an initial 5-wave move to the upside that could be a wave 1 within this larger wave C. Doesn't need to be this exact proportion that I drew here on the chart, it's just an illustration. Now, within our correction in the wave B, nonetheless, within this area, we have been looking for a 3-wave pattern to unfold. We are still looking for this structure to have the opportunity to push to higher prices as long as it holds the $45.5 level. Below the 78.6% retracement would be a strong signal that this structure will have a lot of difficulties in actually following through, and even though we may see a push here below and let's say a sustained break, and then we get a relief rally, I would still be looking with high likelihood for this to take us to lower prices. Now, clearly we do have some structural support as well along this area, and at the 61.8% retracement around the $54 level, we have already formed previously these significant lows that allowed a more substantial move to continue to higher prices. Now, within this wave B, we have been tracking a pretty basic correction, just an A, B, C pattern to the downside, and this does not need to unfold within this exact pattern. In fact, we can quite easily define that a more significant bottom could be in place for a wave A here and to have a wave B top and look for a wave C to the downside, but clearly we have broken the area of resistance, which was allowing us to be able to track an impulse within this wave C. Now, since this area is broken, we need to look for a different interpretation of this structure. So we have actually a couple of options. But first, let's remove this area of resistance. So we could still be looking for a wave C to unfold in this area, and normally I would technically be looking still for the 100% extension of the wave A to be the ideal target for such a wave C. That would be at the $49 level. That remains unchanged since the previous video, but again, it doesn't need to get there and it doesn't need to stop there. It's an ideal target the wave C is generally drawn towards. So we are talking about the idea where we continue to track this wave C. So since we have pushed so high above the area of resistance, and not even within the bounds of a potential diagonal structure within this area, I need to consider that this wave tree would have not yet formed the bottom. I need to consider that this is forming instead an ending diagonal, or who knows, maybe even potentially another one too set up within this area, but this would even imply that this entire pattern, this entire origin scenario is going to fail and we are going to lower prices if this is to form a third wave within this area. So we are tracking this idea of an ending diagonal where instead we have something like an A, B, C pattern unfold within this wave tree. In such an interpretation, we need to be prepared for further continuation to lower prices, because within this structure, I would need to track probably something along the lines of an ending diagonal within an internal wave C. So here we would have a wave 1 down, a wave 2 up, a third wave down, fourth wave up, and then a fifth wave. This pattern would be able to complete our wave 3 to the downside. Now, once we have this complete, if this is to extend in a wave C, we would expect still a correction in a wave 4 and another low in a fifth wave. But this was only one of our interpretations that are possible for this chart, because a WXY is also a perfectly valid pattern, a perfectly valid interpretation to track within a wave B. In this case, I wouldn't need to build an entire 5-wave move to the downside within the wave C. Once we would have the structure within this push complete in a 5-wave pattern, I would be able to consider a count possibly full in the idea of a WXY pattern, where in the wave Y we would have an A, B, C pattern internally. But for this, we actually do need to build an entire 5-wave move to the downside within this area. Now, in this video, we won't be looking too much into the internal structure within a supposed wave C part of this wave tree, but we will add here a small count for this idea. And keep in mind, this is very much able to extend to much lower prices within this wave tree. This count does look quite incomplete to the point that I could even track this as a 1, 2, 3rd, 4th, and a 5th. And then we would need at least another 4-5 pattern, if not more than just one. But for now, we are going to focus on the larger area of resistance that would assume a more significant bottom to already be in place, potentially for this wave tree. It is technically possible. I wouldn't look too much into the exact count, but what I would be tracking would be here the levels between the $61 all the way up to the $66.8 level at the 61.8% retracement. Above that level of resistance, we would have a signal that a more significant bottom would be in place within this pattern. And although it is strongly suggesting to us, this extension that we got in this follow-up structure, that we would likely need to push to lower prices within the wave tree, and that we would not be able to track this as a 1, 2, 3rd, 4th, and a 5th, or that we would need to track a different interpretation that would still be able to allow us to look for lower prices. Now, for a quick recapitulation, on this chart, we absolutely need a confirmation from a smaller time frame before we can look for a more bullish structure. I wouldn't consider this as a reliable area of support for a trade setup necessarily, but this is the only thing that we really have within this larger time frame, unfortunately. I would be waiting for the initial 5-wave move to the upside and the 3-wave correction before even considering a position on this chart. And ultimately, if we manage to break the $66.8 level, we could be looking for something more bullish, but this is assuming we actually have a more significant bottom, and I would expect several additional lows to form before we would consider this. And for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.